So far away, Brad. How are you adjusting to the cold snap?
I mean, considering that I had no heating for a week, it wasn't great.
I've got a hot waterfall. Yeah, the Fact Fiend comfort arc starts now. Let's go. Prior to the 8th season of the show shitting the bed so hard and from such a great height, the impact of it hitting the floor obliterated the show from public consciousness. It was pretty popular. Is that fair to say, Brad?
Yeah, it was massively popular.
That said, there is still a feverish. Is it feverish? Feverish. There is still a feverish demand for the books written by George R.R. Martin, in the hopes that maybe he'll stick the landing a little bit better. And for fans of those books, I've got some bad news. They're probably never coming out due to George R.R. Martin's annoying habit of typing all of his words with one finger.
I mean, it would explain it.
Yeah, so Brad, you are a fan of the Game of Thrones books, yes?
I am, yeah.
How long have you been waiting for Winds of Winter?
Oh, I've lost count of the years. Last I checked, it was 9.
Just the fact that it's like years. And are you aware of like how slow like George R.R. Martin writes? Like, it's like a meme, isn't it, amongst fans of his work?
Yeah, I didn't think it was to do with the speed he wrote. I thought it was to do with the fact that he would rather write anything else.
Yeah, like I love how he's got a blog that he bans people off for asking him about Game of Thrones.
I think it's called Not a Blog.
Yeah,
and he just talks about football.
It's like he went and just wrote Elden Ring before he wrote another like chapter of fucking Game of Thrones.
Did you see the interview with him? And I think it was it Stephen King? Where
Maybe.
He's amazed that Stephen King says, I write like, a book every few months, or whatever it is.
Yes, there is something I want to ask you. All right. How the fuck do you write so many books so fast? I think, I've had a really good 6 months. I've written 3 chapters, and you've finished 3 books in that time.
Like Stephen King famously wrote, I think it's either Cujo or something like that, in a coke-fueled weekend bender, and forgot that he wrote it. I forget which book it was, but I'll put something in. Stephen King famously wrote like a bunch of his stuff in like one weekend, and he's got what are known as his dollar babies. So if people don't know what these are, if you are a film student and you would like to adapt a Stephen King book, you can do so by going to his website, looking up dollar babies. And they are short stories he's written, which he'll sell the rights to for $1 to aspiring film students, so that they can say they've got an official adaptation of a Stephen King work to get their name out there.
I feel like if he sells them to everyone, they're going to lose their value.
Well, that's the thing is, have you any idea how many short stories Stephen King has written, Brad? It's obviously, you won't sell the rights to like Carrie or It for $1, but one of his like 500 short stories, yeah, who gives a fuck?
I'd imagine a school like or college version of Carrie.
No, that's the thing. Of like, if you want to adapt one of his stories, he's happy to do that. And like the criteria is pretty basic. It's like as long as you're not gonna try and do it for commercial reasons, and that you are in film school or have not had a featured credit to your name yet. So it's like he wants it to be people who've just got started in the industry. And that's the thing though, we've talked previously though about those school kids who put on like the Alien play, and that shit was awesome.
I do remember us covering that, yeah.
They made all the props and costumes themselves on a shoestring budget.
The tail is made of a hula hoop, so you can kind of see it there.
Come on.
They did such a good job, director Ridley Scott sent them a thank you letter, and actress Sigourney Weaver's mind was blown. She reached out too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we need to, instead of like cinema's basically like on its ass now because they keep throwing like $300 million after like superhero blockbuster movies that aren't Marvel and they all fail.
Yeah.
I think we need to go all the way back and start making really cheap, shitty film in the vein of that like high school Alien play. And have you ever seen the show Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah, of course I have. Oh wait, are you going to talk about the season 3 play they put on?
Yeah, do you know what the Ember Island players? I want a movie like that. To like making things like stage plays. Well, it's like when we're going to do Lion King. What are you going to do? Are you going to get like all the actors dressed like lions? No, we're going to do CGI. And it's like, no, that sucks. I would have much rather you got all the actors, get fucking Beyonce, put her in a lion costume, and make her act out the play.
Isn't this just Be Kind Rewind?
I've not seen that. Is that basically what they do?
So I think it's Jack Black and I can't remember who else, but I just remember it because it's Jack Black. And the video store they run, I think it burns down or something happens. They lose all of the videos, so they have to remake all of the videos.
We'll shoot you, and I know robot karate.
And they get really popular because like really cheesy and low budget. Yeah, I think we could do something with that. Anyway, in regards to Game of Thrones, if you're currently wondering, like, are we being serious that George R. R. Martin types with one finger? That is true, and the reasoning why is because he learned to type on a really old typewriter, which require a not insignificant amount of force to press the buttons down. So as a result, he learned to type by going and he just never unlearned that habit, and as a result, even to this day, still types like and is it funnier that he's really old and he's doing that? 'Cause that's like the typical thing you get like when old people try and type, isn't it? But he's like a famous author with like 20 fucking books to his name.
I didn't master the art of carbon paper for a long time, and whiteout hadn't been invented. Whiteout was invented later. I'm very old, of course, so but I remember learning to type myself. I only typed with one finger. I still only type with one finger.
The thing is, though, that's not something you get worse at. You get better at typing, which means that when he first started, he was doing the same thing.
He just never got any better. He's still shit at it. But then he wrote Game of Thrones, so you can't really argue. Is that a thing in it of like, it's like Neil Gaiman. The author was once like asked to weigh in on the idea of like, writing thousands of words at a time, because there's like, as a writer myself, I've dealt with those arseholes who were like, well, if you don't write 2,000-3,000 words a day, you're not really a writer. And Neil Gaiman just responded, I wrote Coraline like 50 words at a time every couple of months. And he's like, yeah, that's what Neil Gaiman says. So there's no right or wrong way to create art. It's just very funny that one of the most prolific, most famous authors, especially though who's like this really florid like writing style with these long ass books, and it's just I don't know why it amuses me so much.
So the way that you're acting this out, where he's like smashing his keyboard, does he actually hit it that hard?
Yes, because according to George R. R. Martin himself, his habit of pressing the keys down as hard as possible would result in him literally wearing out the characters on some of the typewriters that he used. And I think that's just so meta that George R. R. Martin, who's famous for randomly killing off characters, would literally rub off the characters on his keyboard. You know what? I wrote that joke, so I'm putting it in.
There's that thing they have in spy films. They try and figure out a password based on which keys are rubbed away. Never on his keyboard.
Oh, man. It's like, you just imagine him coming in and going, are you sure there's a man lives here? Why? Because it looks like someone's been swinging a pickaxe at this typewriter.
I reckon it gets to the point where there's no letters on it and he just knows. And
that's the thing. I touch type now. I can't really show that off when I'm doing, but like, years and years and years of like writing like hundreds, thousands of words a day, I can touch type, and that's why I hold off getting new laptops and keyboards for as long as possible. Because it doesn't matter how fancy a new laptop is, as soon as I put my hands like it's not the same, and I can't touch type anymore. So I imagine like you wouldn't really need to know where the keys are, because like it's just muscle memory at that point, isn't it? It's like if someone hands you a controller for a video game, like you don't need to be told where right trigger is or B or X or what have you. You just know. You don't need to know where the triangle button is. You know it's right there at the top.
I am pretty good at typing without looking, but on occasion my fingers will just do their own thing, and I'll just write sentences of gibberish.
Well, that's what makes it really bad for me, is because I'm like, I write for a living, and I write everything on a £10 Logitech keyboard. I don't have a fancy keyboard. Oh, you think I would? You think I'd have like a fancy keyboard, like one of those ergonomic ones? And I don't. I just write on like a £10 Logitech keyboard, because that's what I feel comfortable using. Because when I was like, a struggling writer with not much money, I'd buy the cheapest thing I could afford, and that's what I got used to. And even now, I'm doing all right. I still buy that, because otherwise I'd have to relearn the muscle memory for typing on it.
What do you splash money on? Because you always seem to have like a lot of the cheapest gear.
Well, you know what I splash money on, Brad? Well, it'd have to be my merch, wouldn't it? You can get some... What an organic ass plug that was. But
what's that one you're wearing, actually? I haven't seen that one.
Oh, this is the Chimera Geddon one. This is the factory metal one with a full metal logo design underneath. Oh. But you can't get the one with this full design on because it costs too much to send to the printers. This is just one that I'm allowed. But you can get one with the Fact Fiend metal logo on it if you like. But
You draw your own Chimera again.
True story. Just like George R.R. Martin, I wore that T-shirt so much, I wore it out and put it on one day and went, just ripped it. And that's not like, a knock against its quality. It's that I wore it literally every time we recorded.
I don't often throw T-shirts out when they're comfortable because, you get used to how nice a T-shirt feels.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then gradually they get those holes in. You're like, I'm going to have to throw it out one of these days.
I've got a pair of jeans. It's my favourite pair of jeans. And they are ripped jeans. But they've got a rip in the one place you don't want to have a rip, which is right in the crotch. And I wear like bright, garish, pink, purple, yellow underwear. Because fuck it, no one's ever going to see it. So it's super noticeable. I'll just sit down. It's like, Carl, has your underwear got hot dogs on it? And it's like, yes, it does. How do you know that? And it's like, I can see it. Oh.
It could be worse. There could be something else hanging out through that hole.
Exactly, yes. But, can we just comment as well on the fact that George R.R. Martin, no doubt, wrote, thousands of lines of exposition from the perspective of a character called Littlefinger using one finger. We just need to talk. It's so dumb.
There's so much, that's twice now. You've just this is the story. Here's a funny fact.
It is. But Brad, have you got a favourite character from Game of Thrones? What character do you think was the most? Oh, actually, no. What word do you think was the biggest ball ache to type out using this one-fingered method?
Ooh, maybe Melisandre, something that's got a lot of letters and is all over the keyboard.
She's my old friend, Melisandre, and this is her first baby shower. And as I was telling her earlier, these are traditionally fun affairs where people are sort of positive and upbeat.
Oh. Right.
And that brings us back to George R.R. Martin because in addition to writing in this incredibly, convoluted, very specific way, he also types out all of the Game of Thrones stuff on a 30-year-old keyboard that I think just runs MS-DOS.
Computer. And then I have my writing computer, which is a DOS machine, not connected to the internet.
A DOS machine.
DOS
How old is
machine.
this
You remember
program?
DOS?
Yeah.
Yes, remember DOS? I use WordStar 4.0 as my word processing system.
Did you make this computer out of wood?
Yeah, see, when he was making jokes about the typewriter, I wasn't sure whether or not he'd maybe uses more up-to-date equipment but still types slowly. He uses a 30-year-old keyboard.
From a relative standpoint, it is a more modern piece of technology, but it's a very, very old computer that literally is just a word processor and that's it. And do you want to hazard a guess at why he uses that instead of a MacBook or something that would be more efficient, but not necessarily something he'd be familiar with?
I mean, familiarity is the only reason I could think.
It's partly that, and it's also partly because when he writes on newer, more modern machines, he doesn't like how, Microsoft...
How well they work.
No, it tells him that words that he invented are spelled wrong. And he just says, I really don't like... So he says, Westeros or something like that, and it tells him it's not the right spelling. He's like, it fucking is, 'cause it's my word.
What about spell check? I bet you hate spell check.
I hate spell check, yes.
Well, also, you can't write it...
Especially when you have the realm of Orbitor. It's
Yes!
And he hates that so much that I'm just going to write on the most bog-standard, basic word processor imaginable.
Earlier this morning, I wrote the word macabre in some text, and it was you've spelled it wrong. I right-clicked, but I accidentally pressed add to dictionary. What do you do? What do you do when you add a word to the dictionary?
You have to go in and take it out. Well, the other one that I like, though, is so you're thinking, okay, well, all these things combined, surely, though, eventually we'll finish these books, and there's just one more fact I want to drop that's going to just piss off fans of these books like yourself, Brad, and that is that George R.R. Martin frequently forgets facts about his own universe.
Oh, God, I've heard this before. Doesn't he have to talk to the people who run the wikis?
Yes. So this sounds a lot worse than it is when you you break it down, because it sounds bad. Why would George R.R. Martin forget stuff about his universe? He wrote it. And that's the point. George R.R. Martin wrote this universe, he created it, but he doesn't live in it. His fans do. So when he's writing, a character he's not written for a couple of chapters, he will contact the, I think it's the moderators of the Fire and Ice wiki or something like that, to ask them to confirm details about it, because they spend all their time reading and rereading his books and endlessly discussing them, whereas George R.R. Martin spends all of his time trying to do anything but talk about Game of Thrones. But I still think that's kind of hilarious that he types with one finger, he writes on 30-year-old hardware that could break at any moment, and doesn't remember facts about the universe he created. Like, Winds of Winter is not fucking coming out.
No, it's a shame. I think he's released like 2 or 3 chapters of it so far. And he's always like, oh, it's coming this year, it's coming this year. But that's all he's written. Just those chapters with his one finger.
And that's the thing, he doesn't need to do anything else, does he? That's the problem. It's like, he's so successful that he never really needs to do anything more. But, so we've got a few minutes now, Brad. And is there anything that you do the more inefficient way, but you refuse to change because it's just the way you've always done it, or it's just the way you feel most comfortable? So I think we all have these like little quirks and foibles when it comes to doing stuff. Like myself, like I write on a... Admittedly, I will admit this is, you know, the absolute bottom of the barrel way to create, written content online. I could get a much better, more ergonomic keyboard, but I just don't want to because I have to relearn and adapt to the muscle memory all over again.
For about 7 or 8 years, I didn't bother learning anything new in the software I used. And then eventually I was like, let's watch a tutorial. Oh, this thing that takes me an hour to do has now got a 5-minute button you just click.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, because you can fall into those traps. But is there any examples that spring to mind for you?
I'm trying to think of a specific example, but most of the time, if there's something that I do inefficiently and someone tells me, I try and correct it because, you got to save as much time as possible. I always get told off for walking too quickly because
keep all that stuff we're editing with the green screen and stuff. In the early days with the green screen, you must have done stuff that you later realise, man, I did this the stupid way. Also, yeah, folks at home, let us know in the comments if there's anything you do the stupid way, and continue to do the stupid way because that's the way you've always done it.
We've been doing this for 5 years, and I still don't believe you with this. It sounds too ridiculous.
That's the thing.
I need to see it for myself.
It's so dumb.
It sounds, by this point, it sounds intentional. He used to write quickly, and then everyone had a go at him. It was like, dude, finish the books faster. So he just started writing with one finger, and then used the other one to give him a middle finger.
Yeah, like Gabe Newell with Half-Life 3, where every time someone bitches about it, it just gets delayed another month. Just every time that someone yells at George R.R. Martin, he types even slower. Do you know the sloths in Zootopia? Just, do.
T
HD03.
H
D03.
D
03.
0.
3.
Oh, we did that with that green morph suit. We didn't do it when everyone kept asking. As soon as people stopped asking, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I imagine it's like, that great Peter Kay bit where it's about dropping your biscuit in your tea. I imagine it's like that when he makes a mistake and it's like, no!
It's like slow motion. Mom! Get a spoon! Me biscuit's falling in me brew! It'll be sinking!
Boom! Boom! Be great. That's what I imagine it's like anyway. You can't think about, can you?
I can't think of anything. I'm trying so hard. I clearly do everything perfectly. You
do everything the right way. But if you want to do something the right way, or the stupid way while looking like a fucking fly-ass boss, check out our merch. That's right. Plugging shit now. I'm actually getting on it. So I've got to edit these, so I know to put the stuff in at the end now. It's great.
That big fat energy over your shoulder looks very nice.
Yeah, that's right. That's the shirt I'm wearing next.